Frankfurt began to welcome Jews as early as 1150. From 1460 until their liberation, Jews were confined to the Judengasse, the street of the Jews, that would soon become an overcrowded ghetto. Almost 6 centuries later, the Frankfurt Jewish Museum stands on the same ground. And here today, a Jewish manuscript that was lost for more than a century is unveiled to the public. Meeting in the archaeological remains of the Frankfurt Jewish ghetto, uncovered during an excavation in 1977, Professor Edward Fram, lecturer in European Jewish culture at Ben-Gurion University in Israel, presents the newly found manuscript. Entitled A Window on the World, it brings no information about one of the greatest Jewish communities of all times.
The first people to decide that this sort of thing was needed was the Jewish Museum here in Frankfurt. They had a manuscript here, and they wanted to see this manuscript published and made available both to the public and to scholars.
The manuscript is in fact a diary of Rabbi Chaim Gundersheim, a judge in the rabbinical court of Frankfurt from 1767, when he was in his late 20s, until his death in 1795. Family quarrels, squabbles between neighbors, legal proceedings over business deals gone sour, real estate transactions, and other disputes were brought before this court.
One of the issues that caught my attention was how often there were squabbles within the Jewish community. People came to court relatively often on all sorts of things. Living space, these houses that are down here were shared by many families. How do you share living space? It's not that apartments weren't divided, so you had to decide how you could share a space that may have been owned by a number of people in an equitable fashion. The court had to decide on that way of sharing equity.
The Judengasse at the end of the 18th century was overcrowded. It was in the place which was conceived in the 15th century for just a couple of families, 7 families and 12 to 14 houses. It became on the same spot. There were living more than 3,000 people in more than 200 houses, so that was crowded.
Jewish ghettos like the one in Frankfurt existed throughout Europe because, due to their non-Christian beliefs, Jews were viewed as foreigners and were placed under strict regulations. Around the ghetto stood walls that, during pogroms, were closed from inside to protect the community, and closed from the outside during Christian holidays to prevent the Jews from leaving during these times.
Well, the idea behind was deducted from canonical law, from the law of the churches already in the 13th century. It was decided that Christians and Jews should not live, could not live, or must not live together. So that was the idea behind that.
Comprised of 210 paper folios, written in multiple hands in Hebrew, along with some Yiddish and German transliterated into Hebrew, the rabbinical court diary of Rabbi Chaim Gundersheim offers a window onto the world of daily life in the Frankfurt Jewish community in the late 18th century, when it was the largest Jewish community in Germany.
This is the late 18th century. We're on the very eve of the Enlightenment. If we turn to elsewhere, to Berlin, people are talking about Moses Mendelssohn and all sorts of changes that are taking place. But if you're speaking here in Frankfurt in the late 18th century, this is still a highly traditional Jewish community with its own ways of life. The outside hasn't yet come in, and they certainly haven't come out yet.
The history of the Jews in Germany did not end in 1945 with the Nazis. And as we enter the 21st century, there are clear signs of a Jewish cultural revival. Today, the Jewish community in Germany has over 200,000 members and represents the fastest growing community in Western Europe. This is Wilson Ruiz for Jewish News 1 in Germany.